It was a cold, stormy night in the city of Ashbourne, the kind of night when people hurried to their homes, locking their doors tight against the wind and rain. But for Claire Morgan, the weather was the least of her worries. She had just received a mysterious letter that had shaken her to her core. The letter was from her long-lost brother, Daniel, someone she hadn't seen or heard from in over a decade. Claire, with her short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes, had always been the strong one in the family. She had a slender build, standing at 5 feet 6 inches, and carried herself with quiet determination. Ever since Daniel had disappeared, her life had been haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding his sudden departure. The letter, though brief, had reignited her hope. It simply read, "Meet me at the old pier, midnight. There's something you need to know." The old pier was located on the outskirts of Ashbourne, a place that had long been abandoned and left to decay. It was the last place Claire had seen Daniel before he vanished all those years ago. She didn't hesitate. Grabbing her coat, she rushed out into the storm, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. As she drove through the rain-soaked streets, her mind raced. Why now? Why, after all these years, had Daniel decided to contact her? And what was it that he needed to tell her? The sense of dread grew stronger with each passing minute. When she arrived at the pier, the scene was eerie. The wind howled through the broken planks, and the waves crashed violently against the shore. Claire stepped out of the car, her breath visible in the freezing air. She pulled her coat tighter around her and made her way down the creaking dock, scanning the darkness for any sign of Daniel. Suddenly, she saw a figure standing at the end of the pier, silhouetted against the crashing waves. It was Daniel. He was taller than she remembered, with the same messy brown hair and brooding expression. His once vibrant green eyes now held a weariness she had never seen before. "Claire," he said quietly as she approached. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but there was something unsettling in his tone. "Daniel," she replied, her heart aching at the sight of him. "Why did you leave? What's going on?" He looked away for a moment, his jaw clenched, before turning back to her. "There are things you don't know, Claire. Things I couldn't tell you back then. But it's all starting to unravel now." Before she could ask more, the sound of footsteps echoed through the night. Claire's stomach twisted in fear as two shadowy figures emerged from the darkness, approaching them with purpose. One of the men was tall and broad-shouldered, with slicked back hair and cold, calculating eyes. The other was shorter, stockier, with a scar running down his face. Daniel stepped in front of Claire, shielding her. "You shouldn't have come, Claire," he said under his breath. "These men, they're dangerous." The taller man spoke first, his voice dripping with menace. "You thought you could run, Daniel? Thought you could keep the truth hidden forever?" "What truth?" Claire demanded, stepping forward despite her fear. "What's going on?" The man laughed, a low, chilling sound. "What truth?" Claire demanded, stepping forward despite her fear. "What's going on?" The man laughed, a low, chilling sound. Daniel's face was pale, his eyes darting between the men and Claire. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't want you involved, Claire." The shorter man stepped forward, pulling a small, crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. He handed it to Claire, his eyes gleaming with dark amusement. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. It was an old photograph, one she hadn't seen in years. It was a picture of her family, taken before everything fell apart. But something was off. In the background of the photo, barely noticeable, was a man standing in the shadows, watching them. Claire's heart raced. "Who is that?" The taller man grinned. "That, my dear, is the man who's been pulling the strings all along. Your family, your life, everything has been a lie." Before she could process his words, Daniel grabbed her arm. "We need to go, now." Without hesitation, they sprinted back down the pier, the two men following closely behind. The wind whipped around them and the rain blurred their vision, but they couldn't stop. Claire's mind raced as fast as her feet. What was Daniel hiding? Who were those men? And what did that photograph mean? They reached the end of the dock, but before they could escape, the men caught up to them. There was a struggle. Daniel fought to protect Claire, but they were outnumbered. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the sound of sirens filled the air. Blue and red lights flashed in the distance. The two men cursed under their breath and disappeared into the night just as the police arrived. Claire was left standing in the rain, gasping for breath. Daniel leaned against a post, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. He looked at her with a mixture of guilt and sadness. "I'm sorry, Claire," he whispered. "I tried to protect you from all of this. But the truth is, our family was never what it seemed." She stared at him, her mind spinning. "What are you talking about?" Daniel hesitated, then finally spoke. "Mom and Dad, they were involved in something dangerous, something that's been haunting me ever since. I had to disappear to keep you safe." Claire's world shattered in that moment. Everything she had believed about her family, about her life, had been a lie. But one thing was certain. Whatever secrets her family had been hiding, they were far from over. As the storm raged on, Claire knew that her life would never be the same again. The truth had been exposed, but the danger was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. And she was ready to face it, no matter what.